Good afternoon, good evening, good night, everybody. My name is Max Cohen. Welcome to the Mocha live stream and podcast. It is Wednesday, February 1st, and I'm joined as always by the founder of the Museum of Crypto Art, Coborn Bell. Coborn, how we doing?
Super. I am coming off a long day of incredibly inspiring conversations, and I think you've laid out some cool topics for us today.
Yeah, this is Coborn's second podcast of the day, so make sure to keep him in your thoughts and prayers. The fact that he's even completing sentences is a small wonder. Yeah, so we're going to talk about a lot of stuff that's kind of on everyone's mind in crypto art today, or at least seems pretty relevant. We're going to touch on open editions. We're going to talk about new people coming into the space or lack thereof. But overarching topic is, when the sales stop, does the art stop? And before you just say no, well, let's get into it a little bit. So, Colborn, you have demonstrated across, our multi-year relationship a pretty breathy knowledge of the market and an ability to kind of conceptualize the way that the art market, especially the crypto art market, is moving in general. So I was hoping, you can kind of give us an overview of where we are in this longer quote unquote crypto winter, what you kind of see coming forward.
I mean, look, I think everything is rhyming at this stage, but in reverse. I think this is no different than when Nifty Gateway introduced the mechanism back in whatever it was, 2021, that like sparked the furor. And that was like blood feud for me. I thought that was the most terrible thing to ever happen.
You're talking about the open edition furor that Nifty Gateway started.
Yeah. The mechanism, because we were dealing, it was just so interesting because we were dealing with like pretty abundant, untouched supply, right? And we were trying to like translate some sort of idea of scarcity in this. And this just kind of like blew it way out of the water. It's such a commercial mechanism to distribute the same thing very, very widely. Mm-hmm. It's so, in my mind, I thought Art Blocks was an interesting innovation in that it was like one of X, but really getting started, it was just like one of one, where you went to known origin for like editions, and those editions would be like 10 or 25. It's such like a pop commercial thing to just like introduce thousands, and Ness, like, to their credit, had an open edition, I think 22,000 sold. That's pretty unheard of.
So before we go any further, do you think, and we'll touch on the open edition kind of meta narrative a little bit later, but do you think that this is here to stay, or do you think that this is like a moment that open editions are having and it'll kind of peter out just as quickly as it seemed to?
Look, I'll say what I said on like our team call. It feels like it's the end of the night at the party. The sun is coming up and like everybody is like doing that mad last scramble for that one last fix, right? Like it doesn't feel good in my mind. I don't see a lot of people like winning on open editions. So, the worst part of it is there's like this carrot that people are dangling of like the future potential burn mechanism. But, I don't think very many people are going to spend like whatever it is, $50, $100, and then like 3 months later still be engaged to like follow through with a lot of this. So in my mind, it's like kind of what became of like some of the social experiments that PAC was doing, of like leading people to a destination where attention is like inevitably lost, and that momentum cannot continue, because when you have everybody focused on one thing, well, as time progresses, everything kind of like bifurcates and goes away, and the momentum around that moment leaves, and then everybody comes back and it's just like, live it.
Yeah. But I think that the open edition meta that we're seeing is a response, right? Because I get the feeling, and perhaps it's totally misplaced, but I get the feeling that it's something that a lot of artists are kind of doing as a necessity against their will, so to speak. But uh, we're dealing with a lot of one artists for the most part, a lot of artists who in the past have either done art blocks drops or other kind of more, I guess, blockchain unique styles of making art. And then we have this open edition meta that has kind of taken over conversation in the space, but it makes sense with a long um, moment where sales, especially at a high level, seem to be drying up for all but a handful of these very, very kind of upper echelon perceived artists, right? So, what can artists of any level do when the sales dry up? Well, open edition seems like a pretty, I guess, in the short term, harmless and pretty, quick and dirty way of, I mean, literally surviving, right? Making some
Y-
cash.
Look, like crypto bull markets are super dangerous. I've seen hundreds of people like think they've suddenly made it. They have all of this money. Maybe they think they can like change around their lifestyle because this is going to be like some sort of new income stream. And then just as quickly as you go up, it dries up, and everything that you like kind of got accustomed to or used to, or the expenses that you had, like has to all just be like dramatically cut down because it's totally out of whack and imbalanced. So maybe some people are feeling that as well. I also think there is a compulsiveness to collecting these things and to being involved in like hyper quick markets, and there is certainly like serotonin and feedback loops of marketing and success and wanting to have the spotlight. So it feels like a hangover. To me, it just feels like, again, like it's the end of the night. Like everybody's got to go home, and
Yeah.
then we got to like prepare for the next party.
And I think it's interesting too because we see, I think a lot of the fanfare rather goes to these harder to acquire artists who are doing these open editions, getting, hundreds, if not thousands of editions dropped, right? And you think about, 1,000 editions minted at 0.06 ETH, that's quite a payday. And I think we don't give enough thought to lower level artists either, as we, generally don't. Lower level only in terms of their perception as a sales generator, right? Um, and as we've spoken about, in person and just over the years, right, the conception we have of sales based on where like you and I specifically live, right? Like in New York, in the United States, where you need a lot of money to, live a kind of middle class existence. But when we're talking about artists, who are maybe in like the global South, for instance, right? A lower level artist who's dropping an edition for, zero point 0.01 ETH, and it's mostly just their friends or, close associates within the space, 10, 15 people minting an open edition. That's a huge payday. If you can manage half an ETH out of, thin air, in some of these, I guess, less traditionally art world connected countries. So I'm torn, right? Because I think on one level, right, at the high level, it does seem like a cop out, or at least like a short term jumping on the bandwagon in order to, accumulate the most amount of sales. But on a lower level of artists who do not have access to that high level of sales, I mean, could it not be like a really consistent kind of revenue stream?
Um,
I mean, it's a tough question, right? Because
it is a tough
we're always
question.
kind of juggling this dichotomy of, we want to preserve the space or at least the integrity of the space on one level, but
Yeah,
people
I
got
mean,
to
look,
get paid, right?
I don't think anybody has like particularly cracked an ethical solution. I don't think the space like really drives ethical behavior.
Mhm.
Uh, what I was just thinking about, and this is kind of out of the blue, but I haven't seen like a collaboration between two artists in the longest time. Right?
Interesting.
That like used to be standard, and now it's really, really individualistic.
Do you have some examples off the top of your head of like artist collabs that you think are really important or that
I
were
mean,
noteworthy?
there was an incredible, the one I think about forever that is still like unsold on Super Rare is like it's in Mushba's account. It's like ferocious. It's like it's whatever the younger generation is called. Z? It's like a 10 artist Gen Z collab, which is wild.
Uh-huh.
Like artists used to come together and like mix and mash their styles. Uh and I just haven't seen that in a long time.
Well, just a little bit of pushback because I agree with you about the collaborations, but um, I do think we see this in some respects with these artist collectives, which is
Yeah.
a really interesting way, I think, of navigating this market, right? Especially for many artists who are not generating huge amounts of sales on their own. And I think specifically of like making it 24/7, right?
Right.
That a couple members of the Mocha team, Anubis and Earth Sample, are a part of. And they make a drop once a month, right? They've got some more, I guess, high sales generating artists and some less high sales generating artists, but it's very collaborative in how the topic each month is ideated. And then these artists are buying each other's work, right? It's essentially like this socialist-esque structure where the success of the highest artist is being kind of petered out amongst everyone so that the whole organism can continue.
So I don't want to like say it like, like I remember very distinctly like A Lot of Money did a collab with Angie Taylor, right? And that was
Mhm.
awesome for like more awareness for both of them. What has somehow happened is that now instead of like collabs where people are kind of meeting in the middle, you'll take like an element from somebody's work and then everybody like does their take on that element, right? We
Mhm.
saw like T. Joe's Blue. I think recently we saw like the Photon Spiral. Um, and I just think I just can't shake the feeling that we have moved so much more from like a general. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe there are just like collectives that are operating independently now, where in the beginning everything was a collective. But to me, it feels like much more individualistic.
Interesting. So where does like a collaboration end and something like these homage pieces or the derivatives begin, right? The Grant Young derivatives of his
Yeah.
the
Is that the
piece with the
cow?
cow,
Yeah.
yeah, and then like the Rick Ostenbrook, the GM. I mean his I
Right.
don't know what you'd call his style, but that seems to be a kind of unofficial, somewhat organic kind of collaboration. Just the very fact that these works are CCO and able to be manipulated by whoever wants them to. It's almost
Right.
like a community-wide collaboration.
Yeah, I'm talking more about like two artists coming together, really meeting in the middle. Like there's no hierarchy of like really where it came from, but just like a new generated piece. Um, I was just
Mhm.
thinking today that we lost that spirit. It used to be
Where
that
do you think
artists
it?
were. I just think
Where,
the
yeah, where do you
market
think it
killed
went?
it. I think the market killed it. I think that's the goal of capitalism, right? I think that it just is like making the individual the focal point of the product. Um,
Mhm. I mean, I think that's what, in a large part, kind of inspires me about something like making it 24/7 or Crypto Argentina, right? Is that there is a focus on like the organization itself, right? And that there is no one specific artist, and especially in like the communications of these artists, right? If you look at Crypto Argentina as an example, Frenetic Void is a hugely successful artist in his own right and can probably generate huge amounts of sales in his own right if he were to just release work outside of the Crypto Argentina framework. But he doesn't have an interest in that. The organization doesn't have an interest in that. And it's all kind of to the end of influencing the stylistic evolution and the financial evolution of the group. And why do you think we don't see that more? Because it seems to be a kind of salve for a lot of artists right now who are
well,
able to like
like
rest in these groups.
talk about like a badass move from Frenetic Void. Is that was
Mhm,
somebody who was like having all the success, incredible, and then just like midstream in that, just like switch their style, right?
mhm,
And it was like totally different and new and expressive, and people like I don't know, they didn't get it, but it was just brilliant. And then to go and do all the work in like with game disease, that
mhm.
is was such like a precursor for the incredible like fallout. Go like dig in thematically to what game disease is trying to present, and you'll see the end game of where we are now.
Mm-hmm. And what is the end game of where we are now?
It's like rushing to nowhere,
Uh-huh.
right? It has lost any philosophical, any sort of like deeper meaning or importance.
Sure, which I think is a really important point. And I want to kind of return to open edition specifically because I think that they do change the meta narrative of crypto art as a whole. I, for one, don't think that this is going away. I think artists having the empowerment of minting their own work on Manifold is going to lead to just more open editions over time, right? I think we'll see more one of one artists experimenting with more open editions over time. Um, and I think that it will probably be seen as a kind of revenue stream for quite a while. But I want to talk more, like less about the revenue side and more about like the ownership aspect of these open editions, right? So you own a ton of one of ones, and I'm certain you own a lot of open editions as well, or at least editioned work. Do you find a difference in how it feels to own a one of one work by an artist you love versus an open edition?
I never really feel like I own any of this,
Sure.
right? Like, I think you only feel like you own something if you're trying to sell it,
Mm-hmm.
right? It doesn't, I exist with it and live with it digitally, right? But I don't have any desire to sell it. I don't know if anybody wants to buy it. It's probably like way too weird and out there and esoteric to begin with. So um, it's just a piece of me at this point.
Sure. I guess I was thinking about this today in terms of like the kind of clout that art, especially crypto art, bestows on its holder in theory. And I think this is part of a larger narrative that we touch on kind of every week in like are we supposed to do with this art that we purchase? What is it for? Right? Is it just for the joy and clout of owning it? Especially if we don't have the displays for it, like what do we do with it? And I was thinking further down the road in terms of these open editions. When I go to somebody's house for the first time, I'm immediately drawn to books, right? A bookshelf, man, like what if they're on the mantle, wherever they are, right? I want to see the books that somebody has because it says a lot about that person, I think, and their taste in general. And I wonder if further down the road, we're going to end up seeing open editions treated similarly, where you're going to stumble into walk into someone's house or into their metaverse building. And it'll be filled with these editions, and you'll be able to glean a lot about the sensibility of the person from the open editions and kind of making that taste demonstrated by art a little bit more accessible? Or do you think that's a totally too optimistic reading?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that I don't know, man. It's an attention thing, right? It's just like it just seems Beeple did the open edition piece, which was just like art raining into a garbage dump, like on fire. That's what it feels like to me, right? It feels just like spam, like every like it's just too much, right? If I have 2,000 pieces of art, it is too much to manage, to like maintain, to like between that and like even just like how overwhelming the 300 pieces in the museum is,
Yeah.
right? There's so much contained just within those like one of one objects, and the storytelling that can go around it, and like defining narrative and capturing. So I don't. It's becoming increasingly difficult to see what, if anything, will actually stand out over time. Right. That's the problem of like the hyper focusing everything into that now moment and getting everybody to experience FOMO, and then like kind of absolving oneself of responsibility for anything in the future.
Mm-hmm. You're reminding me of the Smithsonian Museum, which famously has this, it's like a basement that's larger than the museum itself, right? Where there's just giant shelves of all sorts of artifacts, super important, historically important artifacts that are just, stored away because there's not enough room to display them, right? And you have things on permanent exhibition and you have these rotating exhibitions. And I feel like that's every huge museum. Like the MoMA stores must be much larger than what we see in MoMA, the couple hundred pieces that actually make it to the walls. What does the average person, right, who is not affiliated with a museum, right, does not have access at the moment to a huge metaverse structure where they can display 128 or 256 NFTs like you could do with the largest mocha rooms, right? Like what is the, and I'm torn with this question, but like what is the point of somebody like your average Joe buying 60 open editions from artists they love? What do they get to do with that, right? What does that symbolize?
That is my question, and that's probably where I'm having like a collector crisis. Like I really haven't bought much in a very long time because I can't even get my hands around what it means to do what I did. So again, when you like reduce, when you turn, it's so right. Like everybody wants to hoard these things and feel ownership and connection to these artists, and like this is a tangible way to do it. But actually, what do all of those connections signify? And over time, what does that actually mean? Like how many people are actually in there to like try and turn a profit, or how many people like want to begin to live with that object, whatever that means, right?
Mm-hmm.
Will they ever take the time to like bring it into a metaverse, to display it, to like tell the story of the artist? I think that remains to be seen, but I just know as like time progresses and life changes, priorities change, and then we're all going to kind of like look back on the artist and wonder exactly what happened, because I've seen it again and again, like projects that just did not, that got speculative attention, that did not particularly want speculative attention. All of it was loaded up front. I think like Pack is a good example.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about the merge?
Talking about the merge, I'm talking about like Lost Poets. These were all like kind of hidden narratives that people were sold on, where they kind of went along on the journey. They thought they were accessing something, and it didn't. Like even X Copies Open Edition is way down,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that was only 7,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there wasn't some of the mechanisms involved, but how do, I don't know.
Sure. And I think it's worth discussing, or at least mentioning, that like open editions aren't, in theory, or at least these large edition artworks are not like crypto art exclusive, right? I think about Warhol in 1964 with his Brillo boxes, right?
Yeah.
Basically made a bunch of cardboard boxes. I'm sorry, they weren't cardboard, they were balsa wood, made to emulate Brillo pad boxes, like the soap pads, and you sold them to people. And that's all they were. They were like these, it was meant to show that ordinary products under the hands of an artist can be turned into art objects. And I almost feel like the reverse is happening here, where art objects are being turned into products. Not much of a market for them at the moment. So who knows if that, the products are worth purchasing, but there does seem to be a very outward commodification of these open editions, which is interesting because you see all the time. My timeline is flooded on Twitter with people warning open edition collectors not to get their hopes up that prices are going to go up, right? These are not for flipping, they're for holding. Only get them if you like the art. And it seems very at odds with the actual piece of art itself, the actual product itself, which is very commoditized by nature. Anytime you're going to theoretically have thousands of copies of the same thing, it becomes a commodity. Books are a commodity too, even though they are art. They exist in that, strange middle ground.
I don't have much to say to that other than like, you play shitty games and you win shitty prizes. Like,
well, so, we were talked about at the beginning of this, that a lot of the open edition feels like a response of sorts to market conditions. A lack of new collectors, a kind of atrophy in the public thought about what NFTs are, how useful they are, if they're gambling, all the same tired narratives still seem to be holding in the public. So I guess my question for you is, where did all the new people go? Right? Are they just like where are the people who should be coming in, seeing this space and wanting to like explore here, wanting to get their first pieces of art from?
Everybody already got wrecked.
Mm.
That's what happens. Like bull markets call attention. Anybody and everybody that heard about NFTs, that was going to get involved with NFTs, I guarantee you they already like took their shot. And frankly, it was probably on like some derivative animal PFP, which, you know, maybe this is like the artist's response to PFP. I think PFPs are like very largely in crisis. Does anybody actually see any of those communities like sticking together, innovating, doing something interesting, generating all of this like massive IP that we were promised that was going to like redefine and shape everything?
But I stand by that PFPs do have a value to me in theory, because they are individual unique objects, right? The community, everything aside. Like
the problem
actual
is
art
it doesn't expand out, right?
Sure.
It's just stuck in its own bubble. So like I'm quite confident that pretty much like anybody on the outside of Bored Ape Yacht Club right now probably doesn't want to be inside of Bored Ape Yacht Club.
Sure.
I don't think they're like being compelled or called to like be a part of this community.
But again, I think that we form relationships with pieces of art based on their nearness to us as, arbiters of taste and as like sensible souls, right? And I think, and I tweeted about this yesterday, but part of the frustration for me with open editions is that we have these mechanisms like art blocks and like async blueprints, right? Which are going to generatively create one-of-one artworks out of a mold, right? And that it feels very different to me to have 1,000 artworks that are all kind of the same, but yours is yours, right? Yours is unique. And you end up inherently, automatically forming a relationship to each of those art pieces, right? Whereas with the open editions, you're aware that you're holding a copy of something, right? It is just a nice thing to have to say, I'm a part of this community, whether there is a community or not, almost seems besides the point. And I wish more artists were exploring. I understand why they're not, but I wish more were exploring ways of utilizing the blockchain to both increase, get through this bear market, but also utilize the technology at hand in interesting ways. The way I see that these couple of platforms are doing so. And I know they're gated and everything, and you have to apply, and it's not as easy as just deciding that I'd like to have a edition on.
I feel like async blueprints is open now. I mean, it's a
Is it?
wonderful solution. Yeah, I think so. I know that was eventually their end goal.
Well, I mean, there's a million things to say about the lack of.
I mean, it's much harder to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the problem. Than just create one work.
Yeah, understood. So, like, you mentioned this when we were writing up the notes for this podcast, but we wanted to talk about who and what are the vanguards of holding good space. And I was wondering if you could elaborate on that, right? Who is holding good space right now? What does that even mean?
I don't know. What does that mean? What does that mean? I don't. This is the problem, is that like the market became the message. Mm-hmm. So what exactly are we trying to do? Right? We work on a project that is very much outside of like the market, commercial interests. I think we all genuinely believe that there is some important art movement here. I think it's largely representative of like a massive cultural shift and awakening and like transhuman moment of integrating with machines and expressing this integration, and like humans going and working with AI and going into VR. And a lot of this art is like beginning to reconcile with these feelings. Do I constantly feel like like kids get off my lawn because I'm so resistant to all these changes. Like, yes, it's like, yeah, for sure. And I fight that constantly because, you know, it felt like there was a culture worth preserving. So a lot of the conversations, you know, I've had, but then you think like, I think the internet made things like incredibly more monotone and like cultural distinctions less. You talk to like parents, grandparents, and like the traditions and things that they had are totally being like lost and rewritten. And this is happening in hyper time. So maybe this just is. I don't even know what it means to like hold and be a bastion of good space anymore when things change so fast that like the only thing to be is just rapidly changing and evolving and experimenting.
Well, let's bring the example a bit closer to home, right? When you think about the direction of the museum itself, right? What are the values that you believe in this moment are the most important that we maintain, the most important that crypto art maintains going forward through these market conditions, right? How are you angling, the museum itself?
Look, I think again, just like a home that speaks to like a rebellious nature, an inquisitive spirit, like unending curiosity, creative rights, the ability to like own and be sovereign, and anything that like helps people learn about, get used to, feel comfortable with these technological tools that are like rapidly uplifting us into some place that we've never been, right? And I know for a lot of people that experience can be incredibly scary and frightening, but it's a lot easier if we experience it together in like a place where we can converse and have this dialogue than it is just kind of like out there on your own.
Sure.
Right. So it's meant to be a place that people very easily can come in and out of, to meet those like also like-minded, curious, inquisitive people at the intersection of all of these crazy exponential technologies. And how do we begin to like prescribe some emotion, some feeling, like number one, I think empathy to the experience that everybody is going through together.
I think a lot of what you're talking about is like preserving the aspects of like an empathetic community, right? That I believe you probably saw early on in the days of crypto art that, I missed. And I think a lot about community as it relates to open editions, because it does seem like, yes, we're commodifying art, but there's also an opportunity for any given artist to bring a lot of new people into their like collector sphere, right? And form a relationship that is closer than I think you would have otherwise. I do think that that's one thing that crypto art does specifically well, is it allows artists an opportunity to really make a connection with people, right? When their art really connects with people, that's a wonderful thing. But when you can reach out, talk to the artist, hear their thoughts, right? That's part of existing in an online sense on, mostly on Twitter in 2023. But I guess I see a dearth of open editions being used as community building activities, and that seems like a missed opportunity to me, right? The burn mechanisms are great, but it's really just reinforcing scarcity. It's really just a way of saying, oh yeah, support me financially today, and maybe somewhere down the line I'll hit you back with something that may help you recoup your investment. But it really does seem like a great tool for community building, the way that like airdropped assets can do the same.
I always go back to like the counter side of that is the story that Judy and Bea Dada told me, right? Is that when they like rescued the 2017 collection and put some of those pieces out there, and like thousands of people came in and bought it, and the next day like the prices didn't double. Well, they were just in the Discord like harassing, and there was like no understanding, no appreciation, right? So I think for every one person that cares, there's probably 9 people that actually don't really, frankly, give a shit about the artist or the art, but are caught up in something that they think is like, oh, I know this name, this is my opportunity, I'm going to be here for 24 hours. Somebody's going to come on the back.
But it's nevertheless important to reach that one person out of 10 who wants to connect in a legitimate way. So
I agree, but it might just be too much of a headache on the artist. So I think it's just like opening a Pandora's box. You don't know if it's going to be like, a genie or a demon, and like come what may. So
yeah, I saw a tweet that was I don't know if we could call it motivating, but it was mentioning that open editions allow artists to like function like businesses, right? Gives them a built-in community base that they can grow and leverage and scale if they have the fun, like the know-how to do so. And my first thought was, fuck that. Why would any artist want to do that? The whole reason artists are artists is because they want to not have to be a business, not have to think about business. They want to create art. And I do feel that there's a potential that people are going to be shooting themselves in the foot and not see it until a year from now, when they've built this collector base of people who are mostly looking for an investment, that now have this totally misplaced, but regardless, their, sense of entitlement to some kind of sales.
Look, I know artists are already burnt out. I know they're already doing too much. They're already marketing. So many are wondering like, why. I don't see why you would want to open your obligations up. Like, there is a reason that galleries sit between artists and collectors, right? And that reason, so there isn't like 50 collectors going to that artist all the time, right? So imagine like having to deal with thousands of people trying to appease everybody. It's,
I don't even want to imagine it.
Yeah, just like be careful what you wish for, I guess, is the thing. And, I guess don't spend money you can't afford to lose.
There you go.
So
we've beat this topic to death. So we're going to take off for the day. We're going to take a short break, actually. This will be the end of our formal podcast. So podcast listeners, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you, and we'll see you next week. After the break, we're bringing in Renee, the CTO for the Museum of Crypto Art. We're going to do a little VTubing, a little experiment. So we hope that you stick around with us in another couple of minutes. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, we're back. What's up, Colborne? What's up, Renee? Renee, how are you doing?
Doing good.
Awesome. So you are not big on the screen right now, so we're going to make you big. So bear with me as I figure out how to do that. Renee, you're here to show us. Oh, hell yeah.
Nice. That looks good.
All right. So Renee, tell us what the hell you're doing and where you are.
Yeah, I've been like spending the evening building a bit more with Mocha Rooms. And this is a community curated show with 8 different NFTs on the wall, curated by the community called Fluctual. It's like a collective. And yeah, I've been adding like new stuff here.
Renee, you're a little blurry. Is there a way that we can like drop the frame rate on your end?
I think I could like try to disable like the video. Or let me try to go.
Anyways, you're inside Mocha Rooms, and for anybody that doesn't know what Mocha Rooms are, that's like the museum's flagship product. Totally interoperable metaverse art galleries that you can fill with the crypto art that you love most. You should go to our website, app.museumofcryptoart.com, and check them out.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Like I just hopped through a portal from one of the worlds that we are building into another one, and it's like loading. But this is a world where, when we launched Mocha Rooms, we exhibited a couple of new architectural structures that are being minted next month. And you can, when you have one of these NFTs, one of these rooms, you can put your art on the walls and save the state of this exhibition on chain. And I can display it in all kinds of different world curation that you configured.
This room's not released yet, is it, Renee?
It's not released. I think it's going to be released in February. So we demo a couple of those that are going to be released by different architects.
Are you, like, who designed these architects, or who designed these structures? Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, Warak Walk, Walt, Untitled. I've been exploring them a lot and checked out what they've been like texting on Discord in their builders chat. It's super excited to have these. And then I'm going to show you a room that I've curated. So I got my first room myself 2 days ago, and I exhibit a lot of the different crypto art pieces that I gathered over the past 3 or 4 years.
So for anybody that doesn't know, Renee is like a absolutely brilliant dude with a giant collection of crypto art that he has been building for years now. Again, I'm just going to explain this really quick to anybody who may be watching who has no idea what we're talking about. This is a one-of-one bespoke metaverse object, right, called a room, right? That's what we're walking around in. And it's just been plunked into this awesome metaverse, or I guess virtual world site called HyperFi, which we love. So shout out HyperFi, they rock. Is there a theme to the art that you've curated here, Renee?
I guess it's like I went through my Mocha Multipass where I like already organized all my NFTs, and these are the ones that I've added to the community collection of the museum. So it's a lot of different things, lots of psychedelic art, but also like cool art blocks pieces.
Can you pull back so we can see like the whole room?
Yeah, like it's super large. Like check out the scale.
Huge.
Yeah. Hell yeah. This is a Untitled design, this one, right?
Yeah.
It's Untitled XYZ. He's our resident metaverse architect. Give him a look, give him a follow. He's so,
and that's a
so
32
dope.
slot.
Yeah, 32 slots, and they go up to 420.
So
it's so sick.
So Renee, we were talking before about open editions, right? And we were talking about like, what do we do with open editions? And one of the things we mentioned was, or one of the things that we had touched on was like, when I walk into someone's apartment, I look at their books, right? I'm drawn to like what books they have, because I think it says a lot about like the taste of the person themselves. And one of the things I think of with open editions, right, while they are commodified pieces of art, if I were to come into your room, I guess your both rooms, this room more specifically, and see, art of all these different artists, right? Open editions or not, it's going to say something about you as a person, right? The art,
exactly.
The art chosen to collect. And I think that the proliferation of things like rooms, and the ease of virtual worlds, and the ease of entering into virtual worlds and just throwing, a room or another structure down, is going to make that so much more applicable.
Oh snap!
Colby, recognize that one?
That one looks familiar. It goes back to our conversation. Like when you go into Renee's room, right? You know the type of person that he is, right? Mm-hmm. For the most part, these are like one of one or limited edition, right? This was something that, yeah, I get that it might not be accessible now, but what does that mean to like go into somebody else's place and it's like the same as 1,000 other people?
Which I agree with you in principle, but I still get excited when I see somebody's bookshelf and I'm like, oh, I love that book. That's one of my favorites, right? And that just starts a conversation, right?
But what if it's like The Catcher in the Rye,
I do love that book too.
I know.
Don't knock Catcher in the Rye.
We've all got teenage angst.
We are not hating on Salinger on this podcast. Next episode. It looks beautiful, Renee. Like,
yeah, it
truly.
looks cool.
And you
Would
can
you,
like
um,
build this in minutes, right? You only make a few clicks to create this or configure the Hyperfy world, set like water and the sky and the spawn point, and then you place your room there. And it's good to like go. You can share it, and other people can come in, and you can have conversation.
In terms of like the ease of just dropping into a virtual world, do you think like there's anything easier at the moment than Hyperfy? Or like if I'm some agnostic watching this and I'm like, yo, this is dope, I'd like to have something like this done by the end of the night, do you think Hyperfy is the way to go?
Yes, because you don't need to be able to code. And if you own a room or like go into our playground and use one of the free like available models there and like just start to curate your art into it and downloading it, and you can drop it in. That's everything you need to do, like no coding. And the configuration is easy in our DApp of like the art that you want to showcase. And then you can start to like build other stuff around the exhibition, like the car that I did there, and like explanations, additional content. It's a great tool.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Renee and his team have been working on this for ages, and it's live, and I really encourage everyone to check it out. You can navigate to it through our DApp.
We should definitely do like another full build session.
Yeah, totally.
Like, because we could do like curation to exhibition and display probably in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Join us next week as we go full from decision to display in 10 minutes. Renee, with your avatar in the little right-hand corner, if you like wave your arms wildly, will your avatar... Wow, that's so weird.
Little
cool.
do you know that is actually what Renee looks like.
Yeah, there is a very similar looking man in Hamburg right now doing those exact same movements.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Anything else you want to tell us about rooms, Renee, at the moment?
Yeah, I think timing-wise, we are on point. We are now there at the point where like you can feel that these metaverse worlds and building, not only joining, but also building them is becoming so much easier and super accessible just from a browser. That we are one of the early teams with rooms providing like a modular building block that helps to accelerate building in these systems. And I guess that's super powerful. And the more this will grow, and Mocha is not the smallest institution. Like we've been around for a while, and I see 5 years from now this becoming so easy. Even like 5 months from now, we will have like an application in Hyperfy ready where you can just like go to like add, and then you select a room, like the room application, and then it spawns your room.
So should say that the way to
with the curation.
If you're looking at this and you're like, wow, this is one of the most impressive pieces of technology I've ever seen, I would like to explore this myself. We made it pretty easy. If you go to rooms.museumofcryptoart.com, there's something called the Playground that you can navigate to pretty easily. And you can like download one of these CCO rooms and, oh, hell yeah. Yeah, you can like download it. You can play around with it. You can stuff it full of stuff. You can put it in a virtual world and invite your friends to do whatever. The individually bespoke rooms we raffle. So only way of getting that is through auction of something called a floor token, which you can also find navigating to the same site, rooms.museumofcryptoart.com. But this VTubing is pretty wild.
Yeah. Super versatile.
So we definitely encourage people to like go out, come visit the site, come see what we got cooking up. This is really exciting stuff. And in a year's time, everyone's going to be copycatting us because we're way ahead of the curve. Maybe not a year, maybe like 5 years, but.
Wow.
Anyways, anything else about rooms you guys want to mention?
I just want to be an advocate for like getting your artwork out of your wallet into a world, doing something with it, like inviting people into your space, because the context in which art is presented is incredibly important. Art in a wallet to me suggests that it's just like there for trading. So like free the art. This is a great, super simple, easy way to do it. Check out, what we've built. At the very least, we have incredible curation technology that allows you to begin to like sort and organize and make your wallet like more accessible to people and show them what you care about.
Yeah, so you don't have to just go to fucking OpenSea and use their shitty interface to look at your freaking NFTs.
Yeah, you spent all this
Yeah,
money.
they're a marketplace. I don't know. They have like different UX. It's just I don't know. Like we circumvent a lot of things that they do, and like bring up a more free and less censored selection.
You heard it here first. Renee Schmidt, Mocha Chief Technology Officer. Museum of Crypto Art is better than OpenSea, and you can tag them.
No,
And I'd
no.
like you to tag them. This is awesome. Is this like a Snow Crash?
This is the street by
The street.
Jin and the M3 crew,
Hell
Cool.
yeah.
and we are going to drop a Mocha room here into this as well. I think there's another version, like a day version, where we already did that.
We'll be bringing you back periodically throughout the week so we can keep playing around in this stuff, and maybe Colborn and I will fuck around with some Mocha rooms ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's once you like getting used to it a bit, and it's like using paint. It's not
It's like
as
putting on
complex as
socks.
like Photoshop. Like it's easy thing. Everybody can do it.
We need like a separate once a week. Let's go through the tech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what that car is, but I love it.
That's a
Yeah, it's
crypto
like
motor, no?
Yeah,
Man,
it's
Renee's own
crypto motor
Batmobile.
NFT. Yeah,
Hell yeah.
they got a bunch. And then you can like they already have like an alpha version of a racing game, so you can connect your MetaMask in their ecosystem, and then it reads from your wallet, and then you can drive your own cars. They all
I do feel
also
like
have like GLB downloads.
this shit is all so under the radar, and it's so interesting. Like you're literally playing a racing game in a metaverse structure in a virtual world. Like that just seems so much more interesting than open editions. What do I know?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
We've gone backwards. We've gone way backwards.
Well, gentlemen, I feel like that's a good place to call it before we get too angry and start to disparage our other friends. Any last words from either of you?
We need like a sign off, like
Catch you
Mocha
next week where we'll
signature.
be complaining about something else. Leave a note in the comments about what you think we should disparage next week.
Right, exactly. Grumpy
Well,
old
gentlemen,
man.
it's been a pleasure being here with you today. Renee, thanks for coming on and showing us this, even though
Cool.
this is
He's drowning.
He's drowning.
you can't drown in the metaverse.
That's a good one.
Or can you?
Only in Zuckerberg's metaverse.
Yeah.
It was so nice with you. See you soon.
All right.
See ya.
Peace out, gentlemen.
I know.
And thanks everyone. Bye-bye.